Before I continue, I ask permission from the following collective of peoples: the Ohlone tribe, whose indigenous land we're on, and whose history of displacement is central to my work. My grandparents, who brought my family here, and the Manongs and the continuing waves of immigration of Filipinx families here in San Francisco, whose conviction to remain here fuels my commitment to serving the people. Before I jump into a history of renting, my visual essay on displacement in Excelsior, I share with you its precursor, Please Close Gently, a completed but unpublished visual essay for mobile devices on people and objects during my lolo's decline and eventual passing. Lolo is Tagalog for grandfather. Curating this archive of my lolo's death and parallel events brought awareness to the larger context of death experienced by my city through displacement and gentrification. From the periphery, I documented the violence of my lolo's decline and families experiencing displacement through the animism of blighted spaces and discarded objects in tandem. I liken my photographic and archival practice to the pre-1969 MPAA ratings, because I was a film major, in Hollywood cinema, in which the violence had to be symbolic. Eventually, a Sam Peckinpah Western called The Wild Bunch prompted a change in the rating system by centering violence as a pornographic spectacle in cinema, where we are today with mainstream films. In contrast, my performance of the archive prefers to speak nearby such violent spectacles. A History of Renting is a visual essay currently on Instagram that intends to speak nearby, not speak for, its ethnographic subjects. No ethnography can truly depict the reality of a community. I think to the brilliance of Zora Neale Hurston in her frankness and no-nonsense way of reperforming folk songs she'd learned from the Florida Black community in the 30s for Roosevelt's Depression-era works-in-progress administration archives. Ethnography will always be subjective. Furthermore, as exemplified in Michael Tausig's 2011 I Swear I Saw This, which reflects on 40 years of fieldwork drawings, we must challenge this history of anthropology, reducing collected stories from informants into mere information by taking responsibility for how we share and interpret these narratives. For today, I focus on sharing my time getting to know the people and objects in my local laundromat through my perception of displacement in a history of renting as a third-generation renter in the city. My family and I have been doing laundry at the Clean Wash Center for 15 years and counting, since we moved out of the mission. Laundromats are crucial in this part of the E, as renters like we don't have immediate access to washers and dryers in our units. Before my lolo got sick, he was the one who adamantly did the laundry and got to know the workers. As he became immobile, I took over this weekly responsibility and continued the friendships he had built with the staff. Doing laundry late night and connecting with the workers, typically from 10 p.m. to 1 a.m., we had a lot of laundry, became my moment of refuge from the reality that my lolo was dying and that Excelsior was gentrifying. This routine was performative and meditative. I grew more empathetic of my lolo's trajectory in low-skilled labor and its repetitive motions since he moved to the US, as this is the shared reality for the Clean Wash Center workers, all elderly Filipino immigrants. Like my lolo, they were skilled workers prior to immigrating to the US and had to settle for lower skilled work due to various factors like language barriers, the strain of the recertification process, and employers' unfamiliarity with foreign credentials. One worker, Tito Dewey, was part of this immigration brain waste. But past this reductive analysis of boxing Tito Dewey into a data trend, he was someone I befriended as my own family like many of the workers at the laundromat. Tito Dewey graduated from a top engineering school in the Philippines and had a lucrative career as an industrial engineer in Quezon City. When I met him at Clean Wash Center, he worked the night shift there but also worked as a caregiver for his mother. He was a brilliant, lively fellow who'd belt out Mariah Carey and would astound the Latinx patrons by performing Jose Rizal's Mi Ultimo Adios, my mom knows. Who knows if they really understood this olden Spanish written by a Filipino ilustrado, but Tito Dewey was well loved. Everyone I really got close to, including Tito Dewey, eventually moved on from the laundromat. I took this news really hard. It was also difficult because last year, Clean Wash Center was in the news. It turns out that the property owners converted the laundromat basement for rented studios. The property owners, who are Filipino like me, took advantage of their former tenants, primarily immigrants from Central America who spoke little English and some who are undocumented. As reported in the San Francisco Chronicle, the living conditions were pretty much inhumane. Since then, I feel like the workers were more tight-lipped about themselves and the laundromat. And it's understandable how many have moved on. I think to this warmly lit room my friend Johanna left behind with her trauma when she and her family moved out of the Excelsior. This room carried so much shame, guilt, and intergenerational heartaches for at least 14 years. Johanna and her family experienced so much emotional abuse and manipulation from a kin who slept in this room and also unexpectedly passed away in this room. Out of a need, they stayed in the neighborhood in this house for several more years until their eventual move last year to South San Francisco. By physically extricating ourselves from a place along with associated objects, we have the possibility of leaving trauma behind and begin to heal. Family displacement and healing are common themes across my long-term projects, such as A History of Renting and Bien Prepalakay, this 8-month multimedia undertaking. The title is a Haitian Creole proverb translating to "You are almost but not yet home." Bien Prepalakay comprises of a short film, photo book, photo series, and an installation I developed together with the Moises Francois family. At this time, I was really interested in Jean Rouche's film work and his friendship and long-term collaboration with Damore Zika, a Nigerian traditional healer and one of Niger's first actors. At the time I met the Moises Francois, they had just resettled in San Diego from Mexico and then originally Haiti a few years after the 2010 earthquake. Here is a medium format photo of a typical meal they shared with me and the precious moment when Grandsa Veronique, Grandfrère Ricard, and Patrick were trying to give 2-year-old Carvins a haircut. Beyond they being subjects of my project, they're my family friends. I'm actually visiting them next Tuesday. Here we are at the final leg of my presentation, where the city, family, and body intermingle all at once through my cultural work in SoMa Pilipinas, Filipino Cultural Heritage District. At my alma mater after-school program, where I also currently work, I helped create SoMapagmahal Photo Mentorship Program to teach our middle school students about the importance of community photography and taking ownership of our narratives. Here we are with Instagram famous handle bean.milky, a Bay Area queen, queer, Pinay film photographer. She's cool. We used her portrait work centering women of color to teach our youth artists about the importance of kapwa, community togetherness, and building trust and consent with one's photographic subjects. SoMapagmahal was conceptualized a little after my longtime collaborator Diana Lee and I co-founded Appendix Collective through our curatorial fellowship with the Asian American Women Artists Association. Appendix is a growing collective of multi-ethnic Asian Pacific Islander women and gender non-conforming queer and allied artists whose practices in the Bay Area work to reclaim personal, intimate, and diasporic narratives of intergenerational memory, healing, and trauma. That's a direct quote from our mission statement. SoMapagmahal embodies the community cultural wealth, researched by scholars like Tara J. Yoso, we have nurtured as a Filipinx community in the south of Market, long before even being officially recognized as a cultural district by the state. SoMapagmahal combines the abbreviation for our neighborhood and the Tagalog adjective for being loving, caring, and empathetic. On a third layer, SoMapagmahal is also Taglish for so very loving, reflecting the biculturalism we embody as Filipinx Americans. We focus on cultivating brown joy and kapwa as forms of resistance with our middle school age youth artists who attend Galing Bata bilingual program, an after-school component of Bessie Carmichael Filipino Education Center Pre-K to 8, the only public school serving the south of Market, where 1 in 3 students identify as Filipinx, 40% are English language learners, and is a school serving the highest percentage of students from displaced families in the city. That's also where I attended in the 90s. There's a slide that's missing, but I'm going to read a little bit. It's basically a picture of all the partnerships we've had this past year, which includes Kearney Street Workshop, SoMart's Cultural Center, API Cultural Center, Filipino Mental Health Initiative, and Southern Exposure, and Bayanihan Community Center. So we as co-educator, organizer, teaching artists focus on exposing our students to the community cultural wealth we already have in SoMa Pilipinas due to our long history as Filipinx in SoMa, amidst the gentrification, revitalization, as they call it, of the neighborhood by the tech industry. By affirming these community partnerships, for example, in the form of educational workshops by the Filipino Mental Health Initiative, San Francisco, and exhibition opportunities for our youth provided by Kearney Street Workshop and SoMart's Cultural Center, we want to help continue creating this artistic pipeline for SoMa youth of color. Pictured is our photo process. By naming our 35mm cameras after significant local artists and community leaders, we intend to learn with our students the importance of recognizing that our sheroes and heroes are just down the block, as well as their own family members. Another layer is our conviction to archive our youth artists' work through the names of these cultural workers and artists. We adamantly have a local photo lab organize our folders by these said names. We choose film photography as our medium because of its intentionality with each shot taken, different from digital cameras and smartphones, unlimited photo capacity. By naming the cameras after local role models, we embody SoMapagmahal's holistic process of community photography. Our youth artists build deeper connections with their cameras and the photos taken with that camera through the names, and it is also easier to archive the photos. We also ground our students' photo practice by reviewing the critical role of Spanish and US colonization of the Philippines in the development of photography by looking at the exotification and lack of consent and photographing indigenous Filipinos in the 1904 St. Louis World's Fair. This year, we also began incorporating music videos by artists like Kendrick Lamar, Ruby Ibarra, and Princess Nokia as ways to learn with our students about counter-narratives. SoMapagmahal facilitates an intimate process for our youth artists to access their world in ways outsiders cannot. Both educators and youth artists look forward to our final project of having our students take home cameras for 1 to 2 weeks. This is one photo taken by Aliyah of her cousins in her documentation of a family reunion over spring break this past school year. I compare this situation to how Trinity Menha's ethnographic films engage the reflexive tensions between her positionality as an outgroup among Kenyan women in reassemblage and as an in-group in Forgetting Vietnam. It's humbling to recognize how I, as an outsider, do not have the privilege to capture such moments as Aaliyah is able to do. Beyond abstracts, really, we simply aim to equip our youth artists with storytelling tools like the camera so that they can continue taking control of their own narratives. We hope for them to recognize that their photographic praxis are art forms more important and inclusive of their narratives more than any other art by others they'll experience throughout their lives. While something like SoMapagmahal was not immediately accessible to me as a youth growing up in SoMa Pilipinas, the intergenerational community and radical compassion we had for one another facilitated this conviction in myself to take control of my own narrative by documenting and archiving it. This is a photo of my family with my friends and their moms at the defunct Jollibee, then at 4th and Howard. Does anyone remember that? Yeah. Okay. Where Filipino families would go after attending Sunday Mass at St. Patrick's Church. Anyone did that? Ah, yeah, right, I see it. Cool. We did that too. This picture is now part of the San Francisco Public Library Kodakan Shades of San Francisco archives. There was a day that the San Francisco Public Library brought together community and they brought their pictures, and it's now in the archives. While living in the city may perpetually feel transitory for my family, community, and me, I think of such tension in our counter-narratives as Filipinx is how we can remain committed to being here for each other. As for myself, performing this archival praxis on the city, family, and body is my intended life's work, which I'm humbled to have shared a fragment with you today. Maraming salamat po. Thank you.